I wanted to get back to the body count thing, because I think that's really the number one. Like we were just talking about insecurity. One of the reasons why women default to insecurity as like sort of a shaming tactic for guys is because anything that can divert guys away from like worrying about or overemphasizing or being OCD or like being concerned about body count is fair game. So they're gonna like insecurity, like, oh, you're insecure. Well, about what? The reason why guys are concerned with body count, and overly so, is because they want to ascertain paternity. That's why they want to know that the baby is theirs. If you go all the way back to a evolutionary ancestral past, right? That's why the guys who were worried about that outbred the guys who weren't worried about that, right? And so that is really kind of one of the existential fears of men, is to be cuckolded. You want to know why guys will often, kill the wife or the mother of their child when they find out that the child is actually not theirs.
Oh shit.
That's why. Because it's a loss of investment. It's like, you told me, you lied to me. One of the worst things a woman can do is say it's your baby, and it's not your baby, right? And to the point where, and we're getting like, again, we're crashing headlong into sort of modern times and modern science. So now we have DNA testing that we've really had since the 70s, but now we can like plot the human genome, right? And so we know more about genetic diseases. So if the father has a genetic disease and the children don't, odds are he ain't the father. So how do you deal with that in a 21st century, in 21st century sensibilities? So that's number one. So how do you do that? You dissuade men from you shame them from ever thinking or being suspicious that they might be being cuckolded, because that's really what body count boils down to. It's a insurance, a psychological insurance mechanism to make sure that you're not going to be cuckolded. That's number one. Number two is this, and I wish people would fucking get this through their head, and because exactly this is where I wanted to go with this today, is the alpha widow, the concept of the alpha widow. So when Pearl says, oh, well, after 6 or 7 partners, then you have a 20% increase in marital unhappiness, however that's met, whatever the metric is for that. Yes, there is a higher instance of divorce. There's a higher instance of marital instability. Not happiness is bullshit. First of all, measuring happiness is always voodoo science. Okay. So marital instability, if you're going to do it on that criteria, by that metric, yes. Sexually transmitted diseases, yes. Incident of divorce, yes. It goes up incrementally depending on how many partners you have. Understood. Now, of course, a guy like McMurphy, I don't know if you're familiar with McMurphy. McMurphy's guy, he's kind of like, I want to say red pill adjacent, but he's very critical of the red pill. And so he'll throw stuff out saying like, well, if guys have, women have high body counts, but guys have high body counts too. All you're doing is just distracting from the fact that when women have more partners and men tend to be more overly focused on that, there's a reason for that. Here's the reason. So we can talk about the stats, but what we're really concerned with is not so much the stats of divorce or any of that other shit. It's how many partners has that woman had in her sexual history, and how many of those have had an alpha impact on her. Because that, you want to know where the divorce comes from. Like, let's go further. Where does the 20% come from? Like, why would that be? Like, it's like fucking Inception. You have to get to the bottom of the Inception of the movie. Like, there's an Inception. There's a stage below the 20%, divorce increase, whatever it is. And that's, why would that be? Why would there be that? Why would having more partners predispose a woman to higher instance of marital instability? Sexual transmitted diseases is pretty obvious, but like the rest of that. Well, here's the reason. Because the more men that are in a woman's pool of guys that she's had sex with in the past, means that there's a greater probability that one or more of those guys who are part of that sexual history had an alpha impact on her.
Correct.
And when women are looking for a partner, or the one that got away, or the alpha that she couldn't lock down, if she's got 10 partners as opposed to 3 partners, odds are that you have a much greater pool of men from which that could have happened. If there's 100 partners, now it's like, well, the next guy that I get with, or the guy that I want to settle down with, is never going to measure up to one of those guys that happens to be in that 50 body count. That's what's being missed So if you're a red pill, I'm giving this to you all for free. Next time you're asked about body count and why you think it's so important and why women think, they don't understand, I think it's insecurity. The reason is because one of those guys is the benchmark for all the guys that come after that guy.
Yeah, where she's comparing from.
Yep. So that goes back to the alpha widow dynamic. And I don't think enough people really understand what the alpha widow is.
It's powerful, bro.
That's the guy that she can't get over.
Yep.
That's the guy who so well and she really was in love with, and that was the one, right? That was her soulmate. And Johnny died at Dead Man's Curve, and I can't believe it. Like, you've seen Titanic, obviously.
Yep.
Okay. It's like at the end of the movie where Rose is like giving the heart of the fucking sea to, drops it. It's multi-million-dollar diamond, drops it down to the fucking bottom of the ocean. She's pining for Jack, who died, who's down and froze his ass and dropped down to the bottom of the ocean, right? Because 5 minutes of alpha trumps 5 years of beta. Okay. So she's not thinking about the guy who she married, who gave her this lifestyle of, flying airplanes and riding English horses and having God knows how many, because she's there with her grandchildren, right? So how many grandchildren she's had. And she's not thinking about the guy who was her husband for all those years. She's still hung up at 100 years old, literally 100 years old, on this guy that is at the bottom of the ocean who fucked her once on the Titanic. And it was still considered one of the greatest love stories ever told.